What's up, everyone? A common request we get is, hey guys, get more female house hackers on the podcast. Well, I'm happy to say that's exactly the guest we have in the studio today. Irina Barnett is a female house hacker, and August 2021, she started her journey. Within 1 year, purchased, stabilized, and had her house hack booked out. So we're going to dive into her story, lessons learned, all that great stuff in the podcast today. Before I introduce Irina, I got my great host, Stacy with Envision Advisors. What's up, Stacy?
Hey, Chris.
So, Irina, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It was what? We were just talking timelines here. Give the timeline for everyone because I think it just sums up everything so wonderfully.
For sure, yes. So, and I was going through my notes and seeing how fast it went from just being a renter into a house hacker. So, in August 4th of 2021, I was walking into my one-bedroom studio with no furniture and talking to you on the phone. And then by next year of the same timeline, I already had my house hack property with all my rooms rented out for almost a year. And then another year later, I'm here talking to you, a published author and being a house hacker and being a content creator for Rocky Mountain Women Invest. So I'm excited to be here for sure.
Yeah, you have such a cool story with how you're investing, but you also are parlaying your skills and interests into real estate networking,
Yes.
real estate, a business career that way as well. So I think that is part of what we want to dissect on the podcast today.
For sure.
So you got a lot of great stuff on things that you learned on the property, but back it up a second before we talk 2 years ago. What got you? Where were you? And what got you interested in real estate investing?
So funny enough, I learned about real estate investment through a book, Davis Green book, How to Rent from Out of State. I just wanted to, back then I was married and I remember just trying to find ways to just have additional income. And I said, well, one thing that I remember finding is with that a lot of just not millionaires, but individuals who were more successful in financial needs or resources had real estate.
Yep.
And so that got me to the book. I was like, I walked into Barnes and Nobles and there was that one about real estate. And then that led me to Bigger Pockets and that led me into you. And I remember coming to the meeting in 2018 and seeing you, I think it was the same building, and just coming to the meetups with you. And then you remember
Like one of the classes?
One of the classes, yes.
Yeah.
You had a class and then you had like a case and then you talked to individuals. And I think the attendants were like 10, 12 people sometimes. I just don't remember the details, but I remember just sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, this guy figured it out. Like, and so from there, I just had that, itch and just carry on. Yeah.
I love it. And then, so you got into first thinking about out-of-state investing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so out-of-state investing to house hacking is talk about different ends of the spectrum
yes.
on here. What was kind of the journey, the thought process?
So in the beginning, I thought it would be easier just to buy properties outside of state just because they're more, I should say.
They're cheaper?
They're cheaper, yes. And then I'm like, how am I going to manage this property from Denver?
Yeah.
And back then, I did have a property with my partner and I just decided, you know what? If I already bought one here, I can do it again. And so that's when I pivot into house hacking. I did not know I can just house hack my house and rent it. So
yes,
until I came to those meetups or meetings, classes.
And then, so I want to always kind of talk about you got bit by the real estate bug, went from out-of-state investing to house hacking. We connected. You started the first property hump with Stacy. And talking about kind of that part of the journey, because, that's such a huge learning experience as you're buying your first house hack.
Yes.
And you're kind of figuring out, hey, what makes sense for investment? What makes sense for me? What makes sense for the strategies I want to do? Can you kind of talk about where you were when you initially started the house search with Stacy?
I recently got divorced. So that was the biggest thing. I remember having my rent apartment, and I remember talking to Stacey. Is like, I want to move forward with this because I want to reduce my living expenses. That was my biggest thing.
That was your biggest goal, so reduce your living expenses,
and also adding equity because I don't feel like renting just to rent and pay that amount of money and not earn an equity. Because I learned that from going through the meetings, going through meetups, and everybody talked about in how many years you can get equity. And I learned them from my first property as well. We were in that house for 7 years and the equity almost double. And
yep.
I was like, well, I got to start again and start from scratch. And that's when I got introduced to Stacy, and I was like, I have a timeline. I want to do it by, winter or fall of 2022. So.
Do you remember the specific criteria, Stacy? Like what you guys started out with and then eventually what you bought?
Well, I think you had an idea pretty much of what you wanted from the start, but you weren't exactly sure on the strategy you were going to employ because, we say house hacking, but that can mean a bunch of different things within itself. So what were you thinking when you started?
My criteria was always a single family home just because it was easier to manage. And I was thinking if I wanted to do any rentals, then I don't want to go pay HOA.
Yep.
And then it gives me, I know it's a higher risk because I manage the whole property by myself. You think about landscape and everything else, but then I'm like, I own it and I can rent it, however I need to rent it. And I don't have any like limitations with HOA. But then I think I remember it was like a 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. When it comes to the criteria of the property.
And I think we went through a bunch of different strategies and even kind of a crisis point where Irina was ready to terminate on the property.
Talk about this. Okay, so
yes.
Okay, so found the property, got under contract, and so
remind me, was your original thought you were going to do short-term rentals in the property?
Yes. So one of the things I learned about pivoting, especially in real estate, in the beginning, I thought I was gonna, because we find this great property that followed my criteria and also was qualified for the Bank of America, down payment assistance as well. And so in the beginning, it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and the lower garden area was huge. And I thought, okay, I can do an Airbnb on this. And as I was running the numbers, because I used to run numbers every Friday night, I would do 5 deals. Then I just got so interested in it.
But that's you talk about habits and wealth creation. That's like the wealth creation habits. I was having this conversation yesterday of, hey, it's you do those habits and that's what gets you to success.
Yeah. And to be
I love it.
Expert. Yes. And I remember I'm like, no, the short-term rental will not, I just give into the numbers. And the way I was thinking about it is I had to do another laundry set, for the upstairs. And the cost was so, to me, it was so big. And I remember talking to Jenny, talking to Stacy, and talking to even Ben and Jeff. And then Jeff was the one who came over and he's like, no, you can divide this room in 2 and you can get double the income. And that's when I learned to just to pivot, and to make those changes in the moment. And it's just not to make harsh decisions. Even though you make all the numbers and work on the numbers, it's always good to get a second, third, or fourth opinion.
Well, you did the right thing. You pivoted and you're like, hey, things aren't I had this, buy box criteria and this is not quite fitting like I thought. What do I do? And that's where, you look at pivoting, but you also go out there and you talk to other people. Hey, give me this idea. What would you do? What would you do?
Yes.
And then, fortunately, you get a guy like Jeff walking, hey, get this. Awesome. He has that. You're like, oh, that's obvious now. Yes, I should do that, right?
Yes.
But that's a big part of hey, we're under contract on a property and you want to slow things down. And this is really, really dig into the due diligence. More often than not, it works out. But occasions you know what? Yeah, we need to terminate. So what did it do to the numbers exactly? You said you were going to live, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house?
Yes.
That you turned into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Yeah.
And so how many bedroom, is it ranch style?
It's like a split level.
Split level? Yeah. Where were you going to live when you were going to Airbnb it? Were you going to be top
upstairs?
Upstairs and Airbnb the bottom half?
Yes.
Okay.
And rent the other room upstairs too.
Okay, so room by room up top,
yeah.
Airbnb downstairs, and then after getting some strategy input, you pivoted towards room by room, but adding a 4th bedroom to the basement.
Correct.
So what did that roughly do to the rental income and the amount of time you have to spend into managing it?
For sure. So the one that I had for the Airbnb, I was averaging $1,000 just for the lower level. And that would have been I had to do another laundry set because I would just have to close off the garden level.
Yep.
And then a laundry set for the upstairs area. And I think Stacy was like, I think that's going to be too expensive, the plumbing and everything. And so with just renting the room, I get $850 per room downstairs now. So
and
from
so
$1,000 to $1,600.
And so that $1,000 would kind of be what you netted after expenses and all that stuff.
For,
and is that
for
you?
That, just
was
for
that
the
you
Airbnb.
cleaning the property yourself?
That was me cleaning the property myself. Yes.
Okay, so now so two things here. So you went from 1,000 to what, 1,800, or you said 850?
16. It's like, well, it's 850 per.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
1,700.
1,700.
Okay. So almost double the rent, and I mean, that just saved you like what, 3 to 5 hours a week, probably.
Yeah.
Way less.
Right.
Way less,
management.
because
Yeah.
it's actually 3 months, even 6 months stay for those individuals, and
Yeah.
they are required to do their own cleaning.
Yeah. So I mean, like, that's phenomenal.
Yes.
So what were your thoughts though? Because this is a question I've talked to a lot of like prospective, house hackers, especially like female house hackers, is they're concerned about the roommate situation and getting crazy roommates or managing roommates. Can you speak to that?
For sure. I have stories. Just one. I mean, no, to be honest, like for me, it's more about the criteria that I wanted to follow. Jeff gave me this to me, he gave me a great advice. He listed out the criteria when it comes to finances. 3 times the income, the credit, get those references from landlords, get the references from employment. And since I got into the niche about travel nurses and medical students, it was just easier for me to follow those criterias and then call and interview their employers. And, especially the travel nurses, they have the contracts and I require them to give me the contracts. Or I had a student with me. She's phenomenal. She's my first renter. She'll be with me almost 2 years now, November.
So I'm sorry, I want to,
Sorry.
so the room by room rentals, you're renting them out to really focus on like traveling nurses and
Medical students, yeah.
and medical students. Okay. Cause you're in Aurora near the Fitzsimmons complex, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so when I follow these criteria, I call them and talk to them. And that's how I can and practice make you better. So I had conversations with them. If they're not willing to have conversations or talk more, then I understand. I was like, this individual would not be a great fit. They don't have to be extroverts or introverts. It's just more like, I need to have clear boundaries. These are boundaries we're going to have. These are the rules we're going to have in the house. And if you cannot follow these, then you're not perfect for the house hack,
Mm-hmm.
And it changes. I know we're humans. We have, weeks are not good all the time. And sometimes work would get in the way. But as long as they follow these criteria of knowing that they have to respect the common areas, they have to clean bathrooms, then it's all good. Now, I give you this though. I do have a co-ed kind of house hacking. I have had male traveler nurses live with me as well as female traveler nurses. To me, background check is almost a must. If they're not willing to even go through their first criteria of following those things, then it's a no, and that's how I checked out.
Yeah, it seems like you've put important processes in place to make sure that it's a comfortable living situation, not just for you, but for all of the roommates, right? It's multiple people that need to feel comfortable in the house. What would you say has been like kind of your biggest learning curve going through this process? And
setting boundaries. I understand that I'm very talkative. Sometimes I'm so social, but I understand that sometimes individuals are not. Especially had my male travel nurse. He worked 12 hours a week. 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week because of the contracts. And he would just, hey, and I'm like, hey, and just walk into his room because he needed that space and time. So, and then I've had friends living with me now. And so I'm understanding their communication levels, understanding how to not necessarily back away, but understanding they need the space, or even me. I need my space too. So I just go to my room, and that's why I have TVs in every single room. That's the biggest thing I did. Another advice I got from Jeff was do not put a TV in the living room. There might be some discourse and people would like to watch things, and everybody can go into a room to have access to all the apps, streaming services. Good to go. So
now, did you put a TV in every person's room?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did. So it's it limits. They're having a sale in Walmart too, so I was like, oh, it's $120.
Yeah.
Times 4. Put it in there. But for me, it was just easier. It limits the capabilities of having, again, come areas. The living room is we can do board games and other activities, but to me, it just is helpful for each of them, and for me as well. I'm in my room enjoying my.
I think it makes a lot of sense with what you're saying. People wanting their own space, they can go there, deep, just be themselves and not be bothered. And I would imagine it's an amenity, right? So that helps you differentiate when you're listing the property. This is what the room comes with. Maybe not everybody is doing those same things.
And one of the things that I learned was like when I got into this niche, because I know like for me, it's like riches are in the niches. Like I studied the travel nurse like manual that Furnish Finders had. Is like they had a 29-page booklet, and I remember just reading it in one night. And the amenities they listed was they want to wash and
Can
dryer.
I pause you right there? This is I just want to highlight the fact they actually read the manual they published. So many times, this is just in real estate investing in general or whatever in general for, doing it. People like, oh, what do I do? I'm like, oh, did you read the free manual on the website? No. But what do I do? Well, no, read the manual first.
Yes,
like that is like gold there. Like that was like 90% right there. So like anyone out there doing this stuff, like there is a lot of great free stuff out there, like that 29-page manual, whatever it is, like read it, consume it, like study it.
Yeah, highlight it. I remember printed it out, and I went to like, okay, these are the amenities they want. They want a safe space. They want a clean space. They want wash and dryer on site. And they like to have the TVs and internet, because if they have the tablets, let's say most of them, everybody now has their own streaming service, like subscriptions on their either iPads or their phones. So internet was another must. And like the fact that I give them TV, they're like, a girl just brought her PlayStation and she can play with the TV. And I'm like, good, so it just, but you got to study them and learn. And like, for me, it was more like the service that I provided them is like a win-win situation. They help me with my house hacking property. They help me pay my mortgage, and I provide a service for them. And then they're happy living with me. And so, or content, I should say, not happy, but all the amenities.
You sound like a pretty good landlord.
Yeah.
I try. I mean, it's good. It's like we have open communications, and another thing that I learned.
Well, you're thoughtful and considerate.
Yeah,
and use common sense. Amazing.
Yes. And I think one thing that I forgot to mention earlier about like what you asked me as a female, how do I do the house hacking thing? I also have open communications. I have like text messages, group chats. If they need something, like something were to break, I do my own, I should say my own maintenance. So I was like, okay, I'll be there. I'll do it by this date or whatever. So yeah, communication is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk some numbers for a second?
Sure.
What approximately what was your total down payment on the place, and what was the price point? Like just ballpark.
So we put an offer for $429. There was a $10,000 assistance, and I think I put like $11,000 on my own money.
Okay, so about 11,000 ish all in.
Yes. Well, and then you built the bedroom.
Yes,
you had some repairs you did right away.
Correct. So I added to split the room. That was $3,800.
Okay.
And then insulation for the garage, and then other like I say I spent another $5,000, like addition to the $3,800.
Okay, so about $20,000 all in for down payment, closing cost, and adding a room and just basic rent ready repair stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so $20,000 all in on a $430,000 house, and you bring in what, like $850 times 3?
Yes.
Okay, so $2,550 a month in rent.
Yes.
What's your mortgage payment?
$2,186.
Okay, so you're about living for free then.
I am.
I mean, mortgage and a few other things.
Pays for all my expenses too, like utilities.
Wow.
Yes. I think the only bill I have to pay is like the internet, which is $70.
Yeah.
So I get to live for $70.
That's phenomenal.
Not a bad deal.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't realize numbers were that fantastic.
Yeah. So far it's been good.
Yeah. Well, that's great. All right. So, and that's one of the things I just want to highlight here. Like, as you go back, a couple things that Irina's talked about here is pivoting. Got the numbers, started viewing different strategies, pivoted, and then focused on the niches on there. It's like, hey, I'm going to get focused on this really good niche. And of course, you being near, a giant hospital is conducive to that niche. But they actually went out there and like studied that niche. And hey, what does this clientele really need out there? What do my customer? What's the market need out there? And he took care of all that. So like those are two great points. Whether you do room by room medical professional rentals, whatever, like those are great two habits that anyone should follow. Talk about systems, because I know you're big on systems.
Yes.
And some documents share with us the way you talk about it. Like, what type of systems have you set up, and what do you recommend for other aspiring house hackers out there to keep in mind for systems?
For sure. I love systems. The very first one I did was like I did a very separate email for the house hacking property. So any email address. Sorry, thank you. Email address. So I can have any communication coming through that email. I created canned responses. So whenever I get an inquiry from Furnish Finders or Facebook, I would just copy and send them, those emails. And then for the CAN responses, I have 3 separate templates. The one that's like, thank you for your inquiry. Here are their first requirements. And then if they want to go through a process, the second one is I send them background check information. They go through it. And then the third one is you've been approved or you did not qualified. And it's just easy and stream. And then I put everything in Google Drives. So all the documentation, they can sign that on a Google Drive and have them by quarter. Because sometimes midterm rentals, the one that I do rent, sometimes midterm rentals, I have them on those folders. And then you can even do templates on furnished finders too. You can have inquiries in that. And then once I have them in the house, in the property, I do have group chats that I get information from. Like if they need any service provided or we out of something, then I can reply to those text messages. Those are the systems I have so far. And also I do talk to them and I say, I do put something in the calendar to meet with them in case they want to extend the rent. Because even those travel nurses, they have the option to extend the contracts if they need to. Because that had happened to me a few times before.
So what is your typical stay? What are they?
3 months. So they are here for 13 weeks.
Okay.
So, and then if they add another 10 weeks, then add it and I extend it. So I do have the communication with them 45 days prior to the extended lease. I mean, the termination of lease. Or up to 30 days if they still don't know. Because at least that gives me time to put in a timeline and update my furnished finder listing.
Yeah, from the time you basically update it in the furnished finder and say, hey, go, what's the timeline for getting up there and getting a paying tenant in the space? The lead time.
If I do it between 45 to 45 to 30 days in advance, I do get someone by that next day. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I have I think 2 of my tenants are moving November 30th. So they've already been established, extended lease until then. So I will have to update my rental by either mid-October or mid-September, I should say. Sometimes and then because the contracts come out and they do know how far in advance I have to move in. So I'll have somebody by December 1st.
So you'll advertise ahead of time and then you'll have somebody, so you won't have any vacancy for when they'll move out and the next person will move
in. So 30 to 45 days is the window. Hey, if you get the property advertised and listed, you should have no vacancy or a couple days vacancy.
I have not. I think I've even have an experience where I listed a property and I got a tenant secure within 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tenant A leaves and tenant B comes in.
Yes.
What do you do? What's the timeline and what do you do for turning that unit?
So they leave that day by noon. So what I managed, if I work from home, I work from home that day. And if it's a weekend, it's even better. I come in and clean the room. I do another set of sheets because everything is furnished. I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's a fully furnished house.
Yep.
Everything, dishes, everything's included. They just have to move in with their suitcases. And so I come and do the turnover. I do clean the house, make sure the bathrooms are clean and make sure that everything, toiletries are always, available for them. And I do give them a cute little gift box or whatever they need, and a card. So I set it up and I do that within an hour or 2.
So that takes you 2 hours to clean and prep?
Yeah.
Okay. And to post all the stuff, and again, once you have the systems down and everything's, you're a systems person, how many hours does it take you in general to put up a listing, manage applicants, get a tenant approved? Is that 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours worth of work over that 30 to 45 day period? I
would say with the CAN responses, because I already have the listing already uploaded in one of my drives and I just copy paste and put it up there, or the ones I already have in the furnished finders. I would say it takes minutes, to be honest, to respond. And if they don't, by the second required inquiry, they just don't. They say, no, I'm not willing to do the background check. I'm not willing to do the credit check or even the key check that furnished finders already have established. Once I get that recording, not recording, those records and everything else, it takes 20 minutes to review it quickly and then make sure that everything is in place. I get the contract. I call them.
So just a couple 5 hours.
Yeah,
of
under
work
5 hours, a couple hours at most, and
that's
then you have the
phenomenal.
Conversation, and so
So for and that's always on the trails like Airbnb. Airbnb can be very, it is very intensive. Someone's cleaning the property, either you or hiring someone, and the fact that you're able to get great, you're making more rent than Airbnb and putting a lot less work into there.
Yeah.
what, 5 hours, so 10 to 20 hours a year to keep all 4 rooms per room filled.
Yes.
Like that seems like an amazing ROI on your time.
Yeah. Actually, one of my housemates gave me this comment yesterday. He was like, he's like, I know you like to clean because I keep my common areas like clean all the time. And I think that's what makes it easier for them to move in. And he's like, I think you're a little bit too intense. And I'm like, I know. I'd just rather have things clean. Like, you know, if somebody were, because when a turnover comes in, it takes me 45 minutes to like remove the sheets, wash them, and even put another one or clean it. If I can tell that I'd just rather go get another better sheets or whatever and then change them. And so it doesn't take me that long to clean that 1 or 2 bedrooms because the rest of the house
That's
is clean.
awesome. All right. So any horror stories? You what, got a year and change of operating this property.
Horror
we talked about lots of
stories.
good stuff. Let's talk about some bad stuff here.
Okay, some bad stuff. I think I only had one, and I think it's back to the criteria. I had one tenant that moved in, the guy from Facebook, and she was good. She paid on time. She paid even days in advance. But I think the dynamics was like, if somebody's not as clean, I don't expect them to be as clean as I am, but at least respect the common areas.
Yep.
And she wasn't, and she couldn't. And I think it had to do also with many differences. Like for instance, she just first moved out of her home for the first time. She was a little younger than the rest of the housemates. Nothing wrong with that. It's just I can tell like the differences in generations and how to upkeep was the biggest thing. So that was, I want to say a horror story, but she just, no, I don't want to live here anymore, and just left, and that was it.
Oh, that's not a horror story.
Yeah, that's
that's
you got off easy there.
Yeah, and I think
that's great.
The only one
that's just not the right fit, and that's not even that bad, but it's not the right fit.
It's not fit. And another one is just like living with friends. I love my friends, don't get me wrong. It's just they get to learn the boundaries and get to learn it's different when you hang out versus when you live with them together. So
I think if I lived with most of my best friends, we would not be best friends anymore. We all do well in small doses of each other. So
yes.
I'm impressed has that caused any issues either on the friendship level or because you have to wear like it can be odd too because you're like, hey, I got the friendship hat on. But you also have to then sometimes put the landlord hat on as well, and that can be. I have definitely had experiences of just growing as a human. Being able to kind of like switch roles like that. Well, hey, we can be buddies, but hey, you owe me money, or hey, you need to do this. You didn't have to switch roles. Have you had any issues with that on either hat that you're wearing?
So when it comes to the tenancy, like I'm very straightforward. I'm very blunt and honest sometimes, and so not sometimes.
But be direct.
Direct, yes. And part of my line work as an auditor too is like I'm always about facts, and so these are the facts, and this is why I stick to. However, with friends, you have to navigate that very carefully and understand. Let me have a talk with you. Like, how can I help you, or what is it that I can do? And sometimes and for me, as someone who likes to have control over things, I cannot control those items. So I just talk, resolve that issue, and if there's no, like you said, progress or growth, but at least I know that my part has been handled, and I just relinquish that power and say and let it go.
Well, I think you're right. You like you said, you have the boundaries and you set those expectations, and it's no different than someone you don't know. That like these are the house rules, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
And once you have the conversation, it works smoothly. You just gotta just attend to their needs, or just understand that that's how friends are too. So
yeah, and it comes back down to you have the rules. I think being direct is a very useful skill for everyone to develop, and just good communication. Like it solves so many issues across the board and helps you be a proactive landlord. And as you talked about, it creates that like win-win relationship.
yes.
So I know there'll be people that want to reach out to you. I know you're very active on social. You got your social stuff. You're doing stuff for the Rocky Women's Mountain Group as well.
Yes.
Where is the best place for people to connect with you and also kind of follow your journey?
For sure. So my Instagram account as well. That's be the first line of, I said defense, but the first line of contact.
That's your go-to, right?
Yes,
Is that your main?
Yeah, my main one. They can follow me at Irina Creating. And also they can follow the Rocky Mountain Women Invest information or Instagram to reach out to us as well.
We'll put those in the show notes as well. But like, Irina's great at documenting things, sharing tips. So if you're a house hacker out there, I would definitely recommend following her to learn some tips. All right. One last question here for you, because you're now got 2 years of house hacking experience.
Yes.
If you go back in time and talk to Irina 2 to 3 years ago, or other future house hackers, and say, "Hey, I learned this last 2 years." What advice would you give to your younger, inexperienced self, or newer house hackers?
Oh, for sure. Oh my God. Yes. First of all, my biggest thing that I did was I network and learned the process. I learned real estate, and education is important. Education cannot be taken away from you. So if you go back, and I would do the same, I would go study, go to meetups, learn individuals who've done it, because you get to learn from experienced individuals, and always trust the process. I think sometimes when I remember trying to back out from that property, and I would go back to her and be like, just trust the process. Know that you did the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to wait and see how it's going to turn out, or pivot if you need to. But yeah, education would be the number one thing I would say. Individuals, like, go learn, and education is free right now with Bigger Pockets, your podcast, and like even the meetups that we have with Rocky Mountain Women Invest. Education is so accessible now, and networking is so accessible now. So sometimes we tend to think like, well, I don't have money to do the deal, but then you don't even know if you're just 3 people away from having that resource.
Exactly.
And then just, oh, I have the deal, but then somebody else can have the resources, and then you connect, and it's a win-win. So education is always a must in networking for me.
Well said, Irina. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great. Awesome to catch up, and congrats on the success you're having with your house hack. We'll have you back on in the future when you have house hack number 2 up and running to learn from that.
Yes.
All right. So everyone, thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Irina. Always feel free to talk to me, Stacy, or on the team. We are here to help you figure out the best way to go out there and build and optimize your portfolio here in Denver. Talk to you soon.